Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei marry with Sona part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video and also share this video with your friends. I have created my other videos playlist, there you can watch my all videos easily, check out as well. Let's start this video. Kuo Academy. Stop being such a stick in the mud, Prez. Issei Hyoudou said absent-mindedly. It was his first year at Kuo Academy and Issei Hyoudou had already become a household name. Unfortunately, it was more for his perversion than for anything positive. He and his two friends, Mitsuda and Motohama, had quickly gained a reputation as the school perverts, and it was this reputation that had him sitting alone with the student council president. The young man had messy brown hair with matching brown eyes. He was currently sitting in the office of the student council president, Sona Sitri, and she was lecturing him about yet another peeping incident. "Excuse me, why do you think I'm a stick in the mud?" Sona Sitri replied coolly. Sona Sitri was a young woman with violet eyes and black hair she kept in a bob cut. Her name according to the school was Sona Sitri, but that was just an alias. Her real name was Sona Sitri, the current heiress of the Sitri clan of devils. That's a story for another time though. Right now she was Sona Sitri, the student council president of Kuo Academy. Well, maybe you aren't a stick in the mud, but you are a little too serious. I mean, yay, we were peeping, but come on. It's a school of beautiful girls, and I'm a teenage guy. Naturally we're fascinated by beautiful women. Issei admitted. Then why are so many other young men so well behaved? You and your buddies are the only ones who seem to be acting out. I'd lecture them, but they're hopeless. At least you have some common sense, Sona groaned. The perverted trio had been a thorn in her side already. Issei seemed to be the most reasonable, so she figured that he could convince them to change their ways. Well, if that's all, Prez, I'm leaving. Issei said nonchalantly. Well fine, Mr. Hyoudou. I hope I don't see you in my office anytime soon. Sona said frankly, although she knew it was only a matter of time. Issei shrugged the comment off before saying, you probably will, Prez. Oh, and let me give you some free advice from a pervert. You're a pretty attractive girl, so find yourself a boyfriend. It'll help get rid of that stick up your ass. Excuse me. Sona yelled in a shrill voice while fighting the urge not to blush. It was rare that she was insulted and complimented at the same time. Think about it. Issei said dismissively as he left the room. Once he shut the door, Sona was left to contemplate the pervert's words. Am I attractive? He can't be serious. Sona whispered to herself. It was rare that anybody called her attractive. Sure, her best friend Rias, who had quickly gained the reputation as a school beauty, but never her. The word surprised her, and Sona would never admit it, but she was actually sort of happy. Scene skip. It had been 2 weeks since her conversation with Issei Hyoudou, and she still had the young man's words in her head. Her devilish life was looking up too, since she had gained 2 new peerage members, Momo Hanakai and Ria Kusaka. Momo had long silver hair and light blue eyes. Unlike Sona, her breasts were relatively large. Ria had long brown hair and hazel eyes, and just like Momo, relatively large breasts. However, those weren't important to her. Right now she was sitting with her best friend, Rias Gremory, as they discussed their next peerage members. So Rias, have you found any new peerage prospects? Sona asked nonchalantly. She and Rias had agreed to meet once a month to discuss potential students to add to their peerage. Of course Rias already had 4 members of her peerage. Her knight was a young man with blonde hair and blue eyes named Hyoudou. He was a first year at Kuo, much like Issei, but unlike Issei, he was the school prince. She also had a young girl with silver hair named Kaneko Taoju. She was a who'd be joining the school the next year, and she was Ria's rook. Finally there was the other of Kuo's great ladies, Ria's queen, Akeno Himejima. She had long black hair and a ponytail, and massive breasts. She was the definition of a Yamato Nadeshiko, and it secretly drove Sona crazy. All these beautiful girls, and yet she was so plain. Actually Sona, I think I have found somebody. Ria said with a smile. Then of course there was her best friend, Rias Gremory. She had red hair and green eyes along with massive breasts that were only slightly smaller than her queen. Sona would never admit it, but even though she was her best friend, she hated Rias. Both girls were sisters of devil kings, and both were in the same year. It was bad enough when people compared her to her older sister, but when compared to Rias, it was worse. Really? Who did you find? Sona said curiously. Every time she looked at Ria's breasts it drove her insane. How can they be the same age, and yet she was so stacked? Even her queen, Tsubaki, had large breasts while Sona was on the smaller side. As hard as it is to believe, Issei Hyoudou. Rias asked cautiously. What? Why would Rias want him? Sona thought to herself. Why in the world are you interested in that pervert? Sona questioned in disbelief. She was shocked at Ria's interest, and once again she fought every instinct she had not to blush heavily because of his final words. He and his buddies like to sit outside the walls of my clubroom, and I've seen him a few times. I don't know why, but something about him seems strange. Sona knew she was desperate, but this was ridiculous. Rias was engaged to a man named Riser Phoenix, and although Issei was a pervert, Riser made him look like a little kid. He was a sickening man, and Rias would do anything to get rid of him. If it meant making that guy a devil, Rias was desperate. Alright then, Rias. He's all yours. However, you should wait a little bit. Why is that? Rias asked in confusion. Sona groaned at how oblivious her friend was. Listen Rias, Issei is one of the least popular kids in Kuo Academy. If one of the great ladies approached him, it would cause a firestorm. We don't want people learning about the supernatural by accident. Sona revealed. What she said was true, but there was another selfish reason behind Sona's actions. You're right, Sona. Fine then, we'll wait till next year. Maybe his reputation will change by then. Rias accepted. Alright, then let's meet again in a few weeks. Sona said calmly. Now she was in the clear, and it was time to help out her best friend. Even if Issei Hyoudou was connected to the supernatural, there was no way she'd be able to beat Riser with it. So Sona was going to help lead Issei along. Scene skip. A few days later, the moment she was waiting for had finally arrived. Much as she expected, Issei was caught peeking yet again, and Issei Hyoudou was being called to her office. This was a plan so stupid that she couldn't believe she was doing it. However, if Rias was right, this was her best chance. She waited until after school and once again called the young man into her office. Yo Prez. I guess it's me again. Issei greeted nonchalantly. It was like he was amused by this. Well, he wouldn't be amused for much longer. In fact, he might be rather aroused if Sona had her way. I can't believe I'm doing this, but here we go. Sona thought to herself. Sit down, Issei Hyoudou. Sona said it was a ton far sharper than she had before. Yeah. Issei dismissed as he sat down with her. Issei dismissed the whole thing, and it drove Sona crazy. She wondered if Issei would be so dismissive if Rias was in front of her. Before we get started, I'm curious how much you know about magic. Sona said nonchalantly. Magic? You mean like magicians and crap? I know that they're mostly fake. Those guys use tricks and illusions. What, if I told you that magic was real? Sona said smiling. I'd say you're out of your mind. Issei jokes. Time for a little payback. Sona thought to herself. Okay then, so tell me what this is. Sona said, smirking. A shocked Issei looked on as Sona cast a magic circle from out of nowhere, catching Issei off guard. Okay, so magic is real. What does that have to do with this conversation? Issei said calmly. Nothing, I just thought I'd tell you because I'm about to give you an offer you'd be a fool to refuse. Sona said with a devious smile on her face. You have my attention, Prez. Issei said calmly. Issei was a pervert, but something told him Sona would make things interesting. Sona smiled and got out of her chair. Take my hand. Sona said smiling. Okay then. Issei said nervously. This was getting strange, even for him, but he took a hold of Sona's hand. Good. Sona said, smirking as she cast yet another magic circle, but this time she and Issei were the ones vanishing. Sona's private home. Where the hell are we? Issei said in complete shock. 1 minute he was at the student council's office, the next he was in a bedroom. It was a simple room with mostly books, and at the desk was a laptop computer. Of course right now he was sitting on the bed and Sona was standing up in front of him. Well, we're in my bedroom. Sona said with a sneaky smile. She couldn't believe she was going this route, but she figured it would be harmless. Okay, so what? We're gonna have hex or something? Issei said dismissively. That's right. Sona replied, much to Issei's shock. Okay, I'm seriously confused. Issei admitted. Well, stop being confused and start using those perverted skills of yours. Sona said smiling. She was about to have hex with Issei Hyoudou, she couldn't believe it either. Alrighty then. Issei said smiling. Sona wasn't exactly his top candidate for losing his virginity, but it's not like he was losing it anytime soon. Lemon start. Issei started off by getting off the bed and kissing Sona softly on the lips. It started off as a gentle kiss, but as the two got used to it, they began to clash tongues. Issei was shocked when the demure president started to take control. The kiss only lasted a few more minutes until the pair could no longer breathe. Well, for such a stubborn girl, that was an impressive kiss. Issei smirked. Well, unlike you, that wasn't my first kiss. Sona teased as Issei's eyes popped out of his head. Well, that's one lucky guy. Issei smirked. Sona blushed slightly before revealing something that shocked Issei. My first kiss wasn't with a guy. It was my older sister. Please, don't ask anymore. Sona said bashfully. Well, alrighty then. Issei smiled as he decided that it was time to put all those hours watching porn to work. He was rock hard already and he intended to put this boner to good use. So Prez, why don't you take off that stuffy uniform and I'll show you some real skill. Issei smirked. Bring it on, pervert, Sona teased. She may have been giving up her virginity, but she wasn't going to submit that easily. She had her devil's pride to count on. Sona and Issei both stripped down to their underwear and both parties were shocked at the other's bodies. Wow, not bad at all, Prez. Issei teased as he took a good look at the president of the student council. She had a petite body to be sure, but she made it work. Outside of the B-cup breasts, Sona had some nice material to work with. The light blue panty set was a nice touch also. I should say the same. Sona replied. She thought he was just some boring pervert, but he actually had a fair bit of muscle. So when am I gonna see this skill you were bragging about? Sona teased. Issei smirked before grabbing Sona and placing her on the bed. Right now, Prez. Issei smirked as he shocked the Sitri by using his left hand to play with her private part as he put feather soft kisses all over her body, making sure to hit all the sensitive spots. The combination caused the Sitri heiress to moan heavily. It was a pleasure that she never expected, especially from a pervert. Ah. You're so good, Issei. Sona said happily. She couldn't believe that this pervert was backing up his boasts. Take off that bra and I'll really rock your world. Issei said, smiling as he stopped his efforts in order to entice Sona to reveal all that she had to offer. Very well, Sona said nervously. Unhooking her bra and tossing it to the side, Sona was incredibly nervous. After all, her breasts were the one thing that she didn't like about herself, although that was about to change. Well, let's enjoy these puppies. Issei smiled. Issei continued to finger Sona's snatch with his left hand but used his right hand to pay special attention to her breasts. Sona moaned heavily as Issei's right hand fondled her right breast and Issei's tongue traced over her left. The combination of pleasure pushed Sona even further and further towards her release. I can't believe it. I'm actually gonna come from this pervert's actions. Sona thought to herself, shocked. She had played with herself a few times and given in to her sister's teasing a few more. However, none of that compared to what Issei was doing. A few seconds later, and the time had come. Issei. I'm gonna come. Sounds good, Prez. Issei smiled, he pushed a little further, and the Sitri heiress had finally reached her limit and sprayed her juices all over Issei's fingers. Well, that was quite the display. Issei smiled. Oh, shut up. Sona said, smiling. She was actually enjoying herself. Well, I'm just getting started, and since I made you come, it's time for you to return the favor. Issei smiled as he got up and stripped out of his boxers to reveal his heart and member. Sounds good to me. Sona said, smiling as she stared at his surprisingly large member. Soon the pair was at it again, and this time Sona was doing all the work, giving the young pervert a blowjob as he sat at the edge of her bed. At first it was uncomfortable for the Sitri heiress, but eventually she got used to it and managed to get all 8 inches into her mouth. Damn, Prez. You're good. Issei moaned, and it caused Sona to stop for some reason. Hey. What gives, Prez? Issei complained as the Sitri heiress stopped. Sona, the young woman said angrily. Huh? My name is Sona. Not Prez, not Kaichu, but Sona Sitri, and you will call me that. Sona said angrily, not even aware that she used her real name. Fine. That was really good, Sona. Issei replied. Although he put the fact that she said her name was Sitri instead of Shitori in the back of his mind. He was about to get laid and he didn't want to ruin it. Better. Sona replied as she resumed her work. The blowjob lasted a few more minutes and Issei finally reached his limit. Sona. I'm gonna come. Issei moaned as he kept his hands to his side, knowing that Sona was giving it all she had. Good. Sona said in a muffled voice through the blowjob. A few seconds more and Issei had sent a stream of cum into Sona's mouth. Somehow the young woman contained the massive stream and Issei watched on with glee as Sona swallowed every last bit of the action, returning him to full hardness. Wow. Issei said with amazement. This day had been even better than he imagined it would be, and of course the main event was still to come. I believe that's one piece. Now it's time for the main course. Sona said, smiling before getting up and taking off her panties, which by now had a massive stain from all of the foreplay and the blowjob. So I guess you're on top, huh? Issei smiled as the Sitri heiress stood over him with her glistening private part ready for the final piece of their little act. That's right. Sona said, smiling before lowering herself into Issei, quickly piercing her hymen and signifying their union. Thanks to all the foreplay there was very little pain and now there was no turning back. Sona Sitri had lost her virginity to Issei Hyoudou. Well, it seems you fit nicely in here. Sona said, smiling. Issei relaxed as Sona slowly moved up and down, getting used to the feeling. Well, you are pretty tight, Issei admitted. Hey, you said I had a stick up my ass. I guess now I have one in my private part, huh? Sona teased, remembering the taunt from earlier in the year. Let me show you how good this stick feels. Issei smirked as he finally got used to being inside her. It was time for some fun. Sona moaned as Issei leaped up and grabbed her, flipping her onto the bed. Now, Sona was on the bed with Issei above her and she was at his mercy. That's more like it. Issei smiled as he began sending powerful thrusts deep into Sona. Keep going. So good. Sona moaned as the new position allowed Issei to dominate her in a way she never imagined. Issei's thrusts were hitting her womb and any reluctance remaining about what she had done was over. Now she was ready to enjoy the pleasure for all it was worth. During the next 10 minutes the brown-haired young man gave her body a treatment like she had never imagined and now she had finally reached her limit. Issei. I'm about to come. Sona said happily as the latest position she found herself in had allowed Issei to pierce her like never before. Issei was sitting up on the bed as Sona had her ass in the air and she was facing the edge of her bed. Sounds good to me, Sona. Issei said, smiling. He was reaching his limit too and he was gonna enjoy this. Come inside me. Don't worry, it's a safe day. Sona moaned with excitement. Alrighty then, here we go. Issei smiled as he slammed a load into Sona which caused her to come once again. Sona couldn't believe that she had let this happen, but she wasn't complaining. She took a few moments to sink into Issei's arms and wondered if she was doing the right thing after all. Lemon end. As she lay next to him on the bed, Sona was quite disappointed, something Issei noticed immediately. What's wrong, Sona? I thought you enjoyed having sex with me? Issei asked in confusion. Sona blushed slightly since she had enjoyed herself, but she had failed her original mission. According to the information she had on sacred gears, the best way to awaken it was to use strong stimulation. Her original plan was to seduce Issei and hopefully awaken the sacred gear and then start training him. If she didn't notice anything, she would erase his memories and use a special spell to restore her virginity. What she hadn't counted on was enjoying the moment so much and how calm it made her. Issei was right and maybe this was what she needed. I'm fine, it's just that things didn't go as I expected. Now let's get dressed and return to the school. If we wait too much longer it could cause problems. Sona said with a hesitant smile. Okay then. Issei said nervously. This was strange even for Sona. Of course he figured that he could ask about the whole Sitri thing another time. Now that they were back in the student council office, it was the moment of truth for Sona Sitri. It was time to erase his memories and forget about the wonderful time they shared. Sona. Is everything alright? Issei said innocently. Yes it is, Issei, and since you're not gonna remember this, I'm going to tell you one last secret. Sona said as she fought the urge to cry. Okay then. Issei said, confused. My name is actually Sona Sitri, not Shitori. I'm a devil and I seduced you because I wanted to see if you had a sacred gear. Sacred gears are, Sona explained before Issei cut her off by placing his finger on her lips. Don't worry, Sona. The more you explain the more painful it will be. Now erase my memories and then we'll move on. Sona couldn't believe how calm he was about it all. However, he was right. If she continued to explain herself things would only get more difficult. Alright then, Issei. I'm about to erase your memories. Sona said calmly. Focusing her magic for the memory erase spell, she decided to give the young man one last kiss goodbye. Sona. Issei said, smiling as he held Sona one last time. Issei. Sona said, smiling as their lips came together one final time. Casting the spell, she found herself erasing the memories before something strange happened. Not so fast, girl. A booming voice growled, pushing the pair apart from the shock. What the hell? Sona said in shock as she stood in front of Issei. What's happening to me? Issei groaned in pain. Sona looked on in shock as he grabbed his left arm in pain. Issei, are you okay? Sona screamed in shock. Something had gotten in the way of her spell, and if the voice she heard was any indication, it was something powerful. My arm. What's going on? Issei growled in pain. A surge of energy filled the room, and Sona had to quickly cast a barrier to ensure that nobody else found out about it. For a few minutes a massive energy filled the room, and once it stopped, Sona saw something she never imagined. There's no way. Sona said in disbelief. If she was right about what just appeared on his arm, Issei was exactly what Rias needed. What the hell is this thing? Issei said in shock as he looked at his left arm. All of a sudden there was a red gauntlet with a green jewel in the middle and 2 golden spikes on his arm. Let's just say that I should probably explain sacred gears to you now. Sona said, smiling. Issei did indeed have a sacred gear and it was one of the most powerful gears in existence. Issei, keep going. Sona moaned as the young man slammed her from behind in the favored dogja-style position. It's been about 9 months since Sona and Issei started seeing each other in secret and both had benefited rather greatly from the arrangement. For Issei, he learned that he had a sacred gear known as the boosted gear, a powerful weapon that allowed him to double his power every 10 seconds. Of course he found out after Sona had tried to erase his memories and Drake revealed himself. It was definitely one of the strangest nights of his life. As for Sona, it turned out Issei was right. Once their relationship began, she found that being with him was a great way to relieve the stress that came with her life as both devil and human. It's a shame that pretty soon I'll join Rias' peerage. I doubt I'll be able to enjoy your body as much as I do now. Issei teased as he continued to slam into his black-haired lover. Of course, the other interesting part of their relationship was Rias' grimoire. After explaining sacred gears and the devil world to Issei, Sona told him about Rias and her engagement issue. Oh, shut up. She's not gonna do anything for a while. School starts tomorrow and she's still unaware of your sacred gear. She'll wait for the right moment and then she'll come to you, Sona grunted as the thrusts began to hit their mark. So let me get this straight. Issei teased as he grabbed Sona's breasts and continued his work. You seduced me to find out if I had sacred gear. Yet, instead of adding me to your peerage, you're preparing me to join Rias. Issei wondered. It was certainly an odd arrangement to be sure. For the last year Sona taught Issei about his sacred gear and even trained with him so he was used to magic. The plan was that she would train him until Rias brought him into her peerage. Of course they also had hex pretty often since Sona had found the experience enjoyable and Issei was a teenage guy, so he naturally enjoyed hex. Shut up and fuck me. School starts tomorrow, which means we won't be able to meet as freely as you said. Even now, Tsubaki wonders why I sneak off so much. Sona groaned. Whatever. Issei shrugged. He got to have hex so he didn't complain. By the way, I'm pretty sure that new pawn of yours has a crush on you. Issei revealed. Oh, and I'm about to cum. What? Sona said in shock as Issei's load flowed into her yet again. Lemon end. Really Issei, did you have to tell me that as you came to me? That's not funny, Sona groaned as she got dressed. Sona had a feeling that Saji felt that way, but since she was with Issei, she couldn't exactly respond to the feelings. I thought it was funny. Issei said with a chuckle. Anyway, we start school tomorrow. I'm sure Rias will start spying on you soon enough. Just remember that she doesn't know how strong you've become, so make sure to seal your powers. Yeah, I know. Issei groaned. Thanks to Sona's training, Issei was certainly a force to be reckoned with. He achieved Balance Breaker a few weeks ago, but since he was human, he could only use it for a limited amount of time. He figured that once he became a devil, things would work out much better. Of course for the moment he left the house that Sona and he had been using for their secret meetings. It was a house that her family used when they were in Japan for devil business. Luckily for Issei and Sona that rarely happened. See you tomorrow, Sona. Issei smiled as he teleported back to his room using his own magic circle. Things were definitely gonna get interesting for him moving forward. Time skip. Drake, is it just me, or is something very wrong with this picture? Issei said to himself as he sat on a tree near the kendo hall. A month had passed since the school year started and Rias hadn't approached him at all. In fact, he was fairly certain that Rias had been spying on him using Kaneko. You're the right partner. For some reason the grimoire girl won't approach you and that spells trouble, Drake warned. By the way, those kendo girls are coming. You may want to sneak away before they start attacking. Issei followed the instructions and sure enough, the kendo girls found his buddies and started pummeling them. Something always bothered him about that whole situation. Mitsuda and Motohama always picked the same day and the same time to peek at the girls. For some reason, the girls never seemed to stop them and hadn't patched the hole. Well, that was another concern that he didn't need to worry about. Once the coast was clear, he sent a message to Sona saying that he wanted to speak with her. He figured he'd meet up with his two buddies in a moment since it would do him some good to keep up the usual routine. Orc. Rias Grimoire stood at the window of the old school building and looked down at the three young men that usually found themselves in front of her window. The person she found herself staring at more and more was the brown-haired Issei Hyoudou. A year ago she thought that he might have sacred gear but couldn't be certain. With Kaneko now at the school, she could use the Rook's power of and find out more. Sadly it had been inconclusive. What's going on with you, Issei Hyoudou? Rias mumbled. Spying on him again, Rias. If I didn't know any better I'd say you had a crush. Akeno teased as she watched her king work. Spare me, Akeno. I think he has sacred gear, but even after a year, I'm still not sure. Rias scoffed as she returned to their game. Well, Kaneko has been following him for a few weeks now and hasn't found anything. Akeno teased. I know, and I'm running out of time. Rias said calmly. There was one more card she had to use, and although it was cruel, it was her only choice. During one of her last missions, to kill a stray devil she sensed a group of fallen angels moving into the church. If he did have gear, they'd target him soon enough. Scene skip. Issei found himself once again at Sona's secret house, but this time it wasn't for pleasure, it was actually for business. Since he knew Kaneko was watching him, he went home the normal way and after making sure the coast was clear, teleported to the house to meet with Sona. Right now he was sitting in the kitchen sipping some tea. Sona, I'm pretty sure Rias isn't approaching me at all. She's been spying on me with that rook of hers. However, she hasn't approached me herself since the school year began. Issei revealed. That's impossible. I've heard the rumors, and I'm certain her family will make a power play soon. Sona said in shock. I hate to interrupt, but I believe we have another problem that's just as dangerous. Drake revealed much to the shock of both people. After all, Drake rarely spoke to the two of them together. What's wrong, Drake? Sona asked in concern. Sona had spoken with Drake on a few occasions, but he rarely volunteered information on his own. I believe a group of fallen angels and exorcists are gathering at the old abandoned church. I don't know what they're doing here, but it can't be good. Drake revealed to the shock of Sona Sitri. How long do you think they've been here? Sona asked nervously. If fallen angels were in the territory it couldn't be good. Well, it's been a week or so since I first sensed them. Drake revealed. What? Sona said in shock. This was a big problem, and she knew it. Why did you wait so long to tell us, Drake? Issei wondered. None of them are powerful enough to cause you two any problems. Plus since he was following us, I couldn't be careless. You have a point. Sona groaned. Kaneko would have been able to sense Drake, and with Ria's rash personality that would have led to problems. But right now I say we relax. The fallen angels aren't stupid enough to attack you, and whatever plan they may have in mind, we can stop it rather easily. Just be careful the next few days. Sounds good, and if anything changes make sure to let me know. Sona said smiling. Well, I'm gonna head home. Talk to you soon, Sona. Issei said before kissing Sona on the cheek and leaving. Issei, you may be in more danger than you realize. Sona said nervously to herself. Sona was a very intelligent person, and once she learned that fallen angels had gathered in the church, it meant that one of three things was about to happen. First is that they were going to attack her and Rias and were gathering a force to do it. After all, they would have no doubt known that Sona and Rias already lived in Kuo and attacking recklessly wouldn't work. The other two scenarios involved Issei himself. The fallen angels were either going to seduce him and get him to join them or they were going to kill him and take the boosted gear. Unfortunately for Sona, she suspected it was the latter. Hopefully Issei could warn her before something dangerous really happens. Scene skip. The week had passed since his latest meeting with Sona, and Drake was certainly right to be nervous. For the last week, Issei noticed that not only was Kaneko still following him, but he had gained a new observer in one of the fallen angels that moved into the church. The person stayed outside of what most would consider a normal range, but Issei was still able to sense her. What he found strange was that he was also pretty certain Kaneko could sense the fallen angel, but didn't do anything about it. This was definitely making things interesting for him. Of course even he couldn't have imagined that his second observer would do what she did next. Excuse me? Are you Issei Hyoudou? A young girl asked as she appeared in front of him. She had long black hair and violet eyes. She was wearing a uniform that Issei had never seen before with a red vest and a green pleated skirt. If not for the fact that he knew she wasn't human, Issei would certainly have called her attractive. Partner, she's a fallen angel. I'm pretty sure she's the one who's been watching you the last few days. Drake warned. I figured as much. I guess it's time to see what she wants. Issei thought internally, trying to make sure she didn't notice him. Yeah, I am, so what do you want? My name is Yuma Amano, and I was wondering if you could be my boyfriend. Yuma said, blushing heavily. What? Issei said in disbelief. What? Drake screams internally. Neither of them would have guessed this would happen. You see, I've been watching you from afar because I'm a bit shy. You seem like a nice guy, and well, I figured I'd go for it. Yuma said with a smile. So let me get this straight, you've been watching me from afar and decided to randomly ask me out. Who falls for this crap? Issei thought to himself. Last week he had mostly walked home, and that was usually with his two buddies. This girl stunk at lying. However, since he knew the truth, he figured that he should play along. Sure, I'll be your boyfriend. Issei said smiling. Awesome. I'll see you soon, boyfriend. Yuma said, smiling before leaving. Interestingly enough Issei noticed that Kaneko left as well. Partner, are you sure this is wise? The fallen angel is trying to trap you somehow. Yes, I know, Drake. What I find odd is that Kaneko is gone also. It seems our red-headed friend is up to something. Issei said smiling. This was gonna be an interesting day. Scene skip. So let me get this straight. You got asked out by a fallen angel, and even though you knew it was a trap, you still said yes. Sona groaned as she and Issei relaxed in the bathtub at her house. The two had finished yet another round of hex, but since it was the weekend Issei decided to stay longer than usual. That's right. I know that she wants to seduce me, and I figure that I can find out what she's after. The thing I find odd is that Rias still hasn't approached me. That's the real problem. Rias knows that a fallen angel is after you. There's no reason that she wouldn't do anything unless. Damn her. Sona cursed as she came to a realization that drove her nuts. What did you figure out? Issei wondered. He had a few ideas, but Sona's anger confirmed most of them. I realized what Rias is up to. Sona said angrily. Let me guess. She's gonna use the fallen angels to either forcibly revive me into her peerage, or after she saves me, forcibly add me to her peerage that way. Issei said with a smirk as she stroked his lover's back. How did you know? Sona said in shock. Let's just say being a pervert has its advantages, and combining what I've learned about fallen angels from you and Drake with my old perverted knowledge, everything made sense. Explain. Sona said in shock. Sure, she had come to the same realization as Issei, but she wondered what the young man meant. Based on what you told me about the fallen angels, I realized that they were in Kuo for one of three reasons: to start a war with you and Rias, capture a sacred gear user, or kill a sacred gear user. Considering the power of your combined peerage, plus the fact you and Rias are high-class devils, option 1 is out. Option 2 would have made sense, but Yuma would have moved on me sooner. When Yuma confronted me and asked to be my boyfriend, option 3 became the only option available to her. Of course, there's no way Rias wouldn't have figured out the same thing, considering that she has a far more intimate knowledge of the fallen angels. In other words, she wants to use the fallen angels to force me to join her peerage. That way she has all the control. I'm so sorry, Issei. If I knew Rias was gonna do something like that, I would have stopped her. Maybe we can go tell her brother and put a stop to this. Now why would we stop it? Issei said, smiling. Are you crazy? She's trying to kill you. Sona said in disbelief. Well duh, but I have a plan anyway. First, I need you to give me some information. Issei said, smiling. Sona smiled to herself. Over the last year she learned Issei was pretty devious. Plus, he figured out exactly what both parties were planning, and since he knew about it, there was a way or two around it. I'm listening. Sona smiled. It was then that Issei explained his plan, and she was reminded how brilliant he was. Scene skip. The day of Issei's date with the fallen angel Yuma had at last arrived, and Issei was waiting for her in the middle of town. After Sona had explained what Rias was going to do, the couple came up with an interesting way to counter the plan. Right now Issei was in a blue t-shirt with a teal overcoat and grey pants. It wasn't his favorite outfit, but he wanted to at least look the part of an excited boyfriend. He was brought from his musings when he saw a woman in a strange costume approach him. Why don't you take this flyer, sir? The woman said with an odd smile. It took him a second to figure out that it was Rias' familiar. The fact he gave her a summoning circle made Issei groan at the obvious trick. It seems it's going exactly as Sona expected. How boring. Issei thought to himself. Of course now it was time for the woman of the hour, so he put the summoning circle in his pocket. Hey Issei, sorry I'm late. Yuma said as she arrived. Issei had to admit he was impressed by the outfit. It was a light pink vest that was cut right around her breasts. The black shirt and matching miniskirt underneath made for a fascinating combo. The fact it emphasized her massive breasts was an even bigger jackpot. The pink bag with her just added to the innocent look she was trying to convey. Don't worry about it. Issei replied nonchalantly. It was time for phase 1 of his plan, so the pair started walking to enjoy the date. Of course he made sure to discreetly message Sona while Yuma was trying on some clothes. Time for phase 2. Issei thought to himself. As the pair sat down for dinner, Issei was certainly amused by the date. He could tell just by looking at her that she was faking interest, and despite her attractiveness, Issei knew that this was a facade. The question is, when would she show her true self? Issei, are you alright? Yuma said, smiling. The fallen angel knew something was wrong, but she couldn't figure out what it was. Of course I am, Yuma. I guess it's just so surreal. I never would have imagined that an angel like you would go out with a guy like me. Issei said sneakily. Just as he thought, Yuma flinched at the words, but kept her facade well. This was going to be fun for Issei. Thanks for saying that, Issei. You're so sweet. Yuma replied. Well, this has been awesome, and I hope we can do it again sometime. Issei said, smiling. Me too, Issei. Yuma said hesitantly. Afterwards the pair left and started to make their way towards the fountain that would mark the end of their date. Well Yuma, I guess this is it. Issei said, smiling. I know. It was an incredible date, and you were a perfect gentleman. Yuma said, smiling. This was the moment of truth. Hey Yuma, before I go, I have one final question for you. Issei said, smiling as he walked up to his fake girlfriend. What's that, Issei? Yuma said nervously as the young man got closer and closer. Every instinct in the fallen angel's mind was saying that something was wrong. However, it was too late. Who do you think you're fooling with that acting job, Miss Fallen Angel? Issei said, smiling. What? Yuma gasped, but before she could create a spear she felt a massive spike in power, and Issei slammed her in the gut with a punch that instantly knocked her out. As Yuma collapsed she looked up, and all she saw was a cold expression in the peaceful eyes of the man she thought was so innocent. What are you? Yuma thought to herself before falling unconscious. With Yuma now unconscious, the time had come to complete the day's plans. Picking up his phone he contacted his black-haired lover who was waiting for his call. Hey there, Sonia, the date went well. Yuma's unconscious right now. Should I bring her to the house? Okay, see you in a few. Issei said nonchalantly as he hung up the phone. Grabbing Yuma and slinging her over his side, he grabbed the summoning circle and tossed it into the air. Preparing his own magic circle he teleported away, but not before blasting the circle with a Kai blast, destroying it completely. Orc. Rias was sitting down at her desk in the orc waiting for Issei to summon her and hoping that whatever sacred gear the young man had was powerful enough to save her. Unfortunately it was at that time that she sensed the magic circle being destroyed. Rias panicked and teleported to the location only to find that Issei Hyoudou had vanished. Something was very wrong and Rias didn't like it. She only hoped that the young man was still alive. Otherwise she had made a huge mistake. That's it for chapter 1 everybody. So yeah, things are about to get fun. Issei is taking Yuma somewhere and Rias is completely confused. Well boys and girls, next chapter things heat up even further when Issei interrogates Yuma about their plans and then deals with a very confused Rias Gremory. Ugh. Where am I? Yuma Mono thought to herself as she opened her eyes. The last thing she remembered was being knocked out by Issei Hyoudou, the seemingly innocent young man who she was dating. The fact that he realized she was faking it the whole time was a problem. The fact he was able to knock her out with one punch was even worse. The fallen angel tried to gather her surroundings and quickly realized that she was in big trouble. She was blindfolded, gagged, and trapped in chains that prevented her from using magic. She at least had her clothes on. Of course all that went out the window when she heard a sound she knew very well as a fallen angel. Ah. Issei. Keep going. A voice moaned happily. Oh, you have got to be kidding me, Rainer cursed. Her supposed boyfriend was having sex with somebody and doing it in front of her as she was blindfolded and gagged. She had to listen to the moans of pleasure for minutes on end before her boyfriend finished, no doubt coming inside of whoever he was sleeping with. A torture considering she hadn't gotten off recently herself. However, she endured it for now, since she had no idea what was coming next. That was amazing, Issei. The girl in question said happily. Thanks babe, but it seems my guest has woken up. I'll see you tomorrow. Issei replied. Sounds good and don't worry, I'll deal with you know what. The person replied as she seemed to walk up some stairs. Yuma still had no idea where she was and what had happened. However, that was about to change. Morning, Yuma. Issei said, smiling as he took off the fallen angel's blindfold and gagged. The fallen angel realized that she was in a dungeon and that her boyfriend was in front of him in his stupid school uniform. You bastard. What have you done to me? Yuma cursed. Well, the simple version is that before you could kill me, I knocked you out with one punch. Then I brought you back to this house and chained you up. Issei teased. So what's with the girl you were sleeping with? Yuma retorted. Ah. Yeah. Her. Issei replied sarcastically. Our relationship is kinda complicated. Hope you at least enjoyed the show. Issei replied with a hint of amusement. Yuma blushed slightly since it was an impressive performance. Okay, so get it over with. What are you gonna do with me? Torture me, kill me, rape me, or some kinda twisted version of all three? Yuma replied angrily. So this is your real personality. I guess I can see why you went with the Yuma disguise and the sweet personality. Shame I stopped you before you transformed, I bet you look amazing as a fallen angel. Issei teased. Answer me. Yuma growled angrily. She was not in the mood for games and he wasn't helping matters. Well actually you're gonna answer a few questions for me and then I'm gonna let you go back to that group of yours. Issei replied with amusement. He held all the cards and he knew it. Now why the hell would I answer any of your questions? Yuma scoffed at how foolish she was being. Well it's simple actually. That girl I was with just now, she's a devil. It would only take one phone call to give you to them. Of course, unlike me, they could make your life a real hell. All Issei replied with a savage grin on his face. Yuma gulped a bit because it was true. Plus, if she cooperated she could still keep the Asia Argento mission safe. As long as she hid that from him, she would be fine. Very well then, ask away. Issei smiled since at least he was gonna get some information. Of course how he used it was up to Rainer. Okay then, so let's start with your name. Huh? Yuma replied in confusion. You heard me. I know that Yuma Amano is a fake name. So what's your real name? Issei said almost mockingly. This was a simple question so Yuma answered. My name is Rainer. Well, nice to meet you, Rainer. Issei replied sarcastically. Obviously you were sent to kill me. Who told you about me? Issei asked calmly. Again it was a simple question so Rainer decided to answer. I was sent by the leader of the fallen angels, Azazel, to observe you and to see if you and your sacred gear were a threat. I figured I'd be a bit proactive though, so I decided to kill you. Rainer replied. The answer made Issei frown, which was nervously. You're lying to me, aren't you, Rainer? Issei said with a hint of disappointment. Why do you think I'm lying? Rainer replied nervously. Ah, see, that's another secret and one I kept from my girlfriend. You see, Azazel and I are actually good buddies. I doubt he would want to have me killed. Issei replied. Impossible. How could you know Azazel? Rainer gasped. Something was definitely wrong and she knew it. The answer is simple actually. Over the summer there was a massive video game event. I ran into the guy there and we became fast friends. Of course he knows all about my real secret. Issei said smiling. You're lying. Rainer said in shock. This definitely caught her off guard. Nope, not at all. Issei replied, grabbing his phone from his pocket and looked for a picture. Finding it he showed the fallen angel. See, here we are together. Sure enough it was Issei and Azazel side by side. They were holding the doubles first place trophy for some game called Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Damn it, so he tricked me. Rainer cursed. Who tricked you? Issei replied with a devious grin. Now he had true leverage on Rainer and he was gonna milk it for all it's worth. I won't say a thing. Rainer cursed angrily. Now she was truly screwed, but she held firm. You do realize that all it takes is one phone call and I can bring you over to Azazel. Which is easier, explaining the truth to him or me? Issei said savagely. Of course he was gonna tell Azazel anyway, so it was a moot point, but she didn't need to know that. Fine. I'll tell you. We were actually sent here by Kakabiel in order to wait for a nun named Asia Argento. She's a young woman who has twilight healing, a powerful sacred gear. He told us to bring the nun here and take her sacred gear from her. Afterwards we were to leave her body and return to base. She's supposed to arrive in a week. During one of the trips into town to buy supplies I sensed the faint aura of your sacred gear. I realized you were a threat and decided to kill you on my own. Rainer admitted knowing that she was trapped. The truth is that Kakabiel told her that killing the Red Dragon Emperor when he was still weak would help her reach her goal of pleasing Azazel. She naturally agreed. However, she was keeping that a secret since she couldn't trust the young man in front of her. Issei knew she was hiding more secrets but figured that he had more than enough information. The fact that somebody else was on the way complicated matters, but he had a week to deal with that. Very well then, Rainer, you're free to go. Issei replied. So you're gonna let me go just like that? Rainer replied in confusion. Well yeah, I did say I would. You answered all my questions and now you can go home. Issei replied nonchalantly. He was a man of his word and apparently he had bigger problems to deal with. Fine, then let me. Yuma started to complain, but Issei used a sleeper hold to knock her out again. After he was done he took Yuma off the chains and activated a magic circle and teleported to a room in a love hotel that Azazel lent him in exchange for finding out whatever Yuma told him. Well, now to call Azazel. A deal is a deal after all. Issei snickered. Things had gone exactly as planned and the next part was going to be interesting. Scene skip. A new day brought a new challenge and source of annoyance for Issei. After leaving the love hotel and the unconscious Rainer, he went over to Azazel's to tell his gaming buddy about what happened. Needless to say, the normally passive Azazel was furious at the news. He wasn't surprised that Kakabiel was behind the fallen angels, however Issei's latest words were what drove him insane. Flashback. I'm not surprised Kakabiel was behind all of this, but I still can't believe that he would go that far. Azazel said angrily. The leader of the fallen angels was an older man that appeared to be in his late 40s with tanned skin and brown hair with a blonde twinge. He wore a brown overcoat and a green kimono underneath. Well, there's one other thing that bothers me. Rainer told me that after they took the nun's gear they were to leave the body and go away. There's only one reason I can think of that they'd do that. Issei said ominously. Azazel froze before coming to a very dangerous realization. Yep, it's extremely likely that Kakabiel is working with a devil and if I'm right, he's a high-class devil. Azazel said solemnly. Pretty much. The high-class devil wants this nun and Kakabiel wants a war. What better place to set up shop than a place with the sisters of two devil kings? Devil kings that happen to be siskins of the highest order. Hahaha. That's right, kid. I guess all that pillow talk with that Sitri girl is paying off. Azazel teased. How did you know I was sleeping with Sona? Issei replied in shock. She called you when you were in the bathroom during one of our gaming sessions a month ago. I figured that you didn't want her knowing about me, so I hung up. That explains why I didn't remember the missed call. So you tell anybody about that? Issei wondered. Not at all. I'll keep your secrets as long as you don't tell anybody from the devils that I'm here. Not exactly a good look, you know. Coming from a guy who's sleeping with a girl whose sister could kill me with a flick of her wrist. I'd say that both of us are in danger. Issei chuckled. Care for another round of Smash before you go home? Azazel wondered. Sure. I believe our record is 498-497 in my favor. Issei smirked. Well, it's time to even it up. Azazel replied with a smile. The pair played Smash Brothers for a few hours and then Issei went home. By the way, their series was now tied at 510-510. It was a good day overall. Flashback over. As he reminisced on his fun with Azazel, Issei arrived at school and he wondered just what would happen next. He arrived at class with things being relatively normal, which surprised him, considering that he was so late. This is definitely Sona's doing. Issei thought to himself. Sona must have convinced Rias to let her handle Issei's supposed death. That meant that of course Sona did nothing, which worked out nicely for him. Yo dude, is everything okay? Mitsuda said in shock. Yeah man, are you alright? Motohama replied also. Yeah guys, I wasn't feeling too hot, so I stayed home for a day. Sorry for the confusion. Issei smoothly lied. Sure, he could have told them the truth, but explaining that you skipped class because you were interrogating a hot fallen angel who tried to kill you after having sex with the student council president was insane. The rest of the morning went relatively well. And Issei knew it was only a matter of time until Rias called for him. When the end of the day arrived, the moment Issei was waiting for had arrived. Who would have guessed that it was in the form of his worst enemy, well at least by the school's standards. Ah, excuse me, is Issei Hyoudou here? A male voice said as he walked into the classroom. The young man had blonde hair and blue eyes. His name was Kiba Hyoudou, and according to many he was the school prince. Ah. Kiba-sama is here. One of the girls swooned. Wait a minute, why does he want to see Hyoudou? Another girl said in shock. I'm right over here. Issei replied sarcastically. This was certainly more interesting than he expected. Kiba walked over and Issei was certain that as long as he played things right, he would be a devil very soon. On behalf of Rias Gremory, president of the Occult Research Club, I'd like to extend an invitation for you to join the Occult Research Club. Very well then, I accept. Issei said smiling. Issei, what in the world is going on? Mitsuda said in shock. I made some comments on a popular occult website and I accidentally used my real name. I'm guessing Rias saw my comments and found out that she had a fellow occult fan on her hands. Alright. Mitsuda said, hesitating. But that the pair left and Issei and Kiba made their way towards the old school building where Rias was waiting. As they made their way to the Occult Research Club, Issei smiled since he could only imagine what Rias would do now that she knew he was alive. When they finally arrived at the Orc, Issei groaned internally at the way this was set up. Okay, the candles and all that makes sense, but seriously, this is ridiculous. Issei thought to himself. As he looked at the opulent room, it felt almost like the bedroom of some rich socialite. Considering Ria's actual status, that was a tad ironic. Of course, that wasn't the only thing that made the young man groan. Sitting on the couch was the silver-haired Kaneko Taoju, who was enjoying some sweets. Of course, Issei was well aware that Kaneko had been stalking him the last few weeks, but he wasn't going to say anything. So this is the mysterious Issei Hyoudou, huh? Akeno Himejima said, smiling as she walked up to him. She had heard Sona complain about it so many times, but seeing it in person, Akeno was truly stacked. Yeah, hi. So where's Rias? Issei replied calmly. He couldn't see the red head, which was not a good sign. The person in question appeared from another room. Ah. Sorry about that, I was trying to work on some homework before you got here. Rias said innocently as she walked into the room. Sounds good, so care to tell me why you've called me here, Rias? Issei said nonchalantly. He didn't care enough to use all the formalities, so he got straight to the point. This is why. Rias said with a smile. All of a sudden the four people in the room all had odd bat wings sticking out of their sides. Okay. So what's with the wings? Issei replied nonchalantly. Of course, since Issei had been sleeping with Sona for the better part of a year, he was aware of the devils and their wings, so it didn't surprise him, but he had to play the fool. Note to self. Get Sona to have sex while her wings are out. Issei thought to himself, figuring that it would be fun. I'd say you already know all about us. Rias smiled. What do you mean by that, Miss Gremory? Issei replied smiling. This was gonna be a game of who blinks first, and he loved this game. Akeno, if you please. Rias said smiling. Ifufu, this is so fun. Akeno said smiling. Uh-oh. Issei said nervously as he could sense the magic power quickly building up in Akeno. He now had a choice. Stay where he is and most likely eat a lightning attack or dodge and reveal himself. Considering that Rias wanted him on her side, he knew this was a test. So he stood pat. Sure enough, the lightning attack moved to the side just before it was going to hit him. Nice magic trick, Himejima-senpai. What else have you got? Issei replied, smiling. Enough. Drake yelled out as the boosted gear appeared on his left hand. Unbelievable. So you have the boosted gear? Rias said in complete shock. Would you have to go and do that, Drake? Our game of chicken was getting fun. Issei whined slightly. Because you two were going to do this little dance all day if I didn't step in. Plus this one has all the markings of a sadist and I know how much pain you can take. Issei groaned. Well, I have to admit I never expected you to have the boosted gear. Rias said with a pleasant smile on her face. Well, yeah. That at least saves you most of the explanation about the supernatural and the boosted gear. So now you know my secret. Issei said dismissively. True, but I don't know how much you know. Rias said with a wry smile. Well, I know enough to know that Kaneko here has been spying on me for the better part of a month. What I don't know is why you sought me out of all people. Issei replied, causing Rias to wince slightly. Of course he was well aware of Rias' intentions, but he wanted to keep his relationship with Sona a secret for now. Rias groaned because she was trapped. Deciding that the truth was a bad idea, she went for an alternative truth. You see, my goal is to become the strongest devil in the raiding games. Raiding games, by the way, are special tournaments for devils. In order to do that, I need powerful peerage members. I could tell that your sacred gear was powerful, so I decided to recruit you. However, I never imagined you'd be the Red Dragon Emperor. I see. Issei replied. Of course he knew she was lying, at least about how much she knew about him. This game of cat and mouse was not interesting. So there you have it. Will you join me, Issei Hyoudou? Rias asked calmly. Inside she was incredibly nervous. Her original plan had failed and she could tell that Issei was holding back some information. Yes, I will, Rias. Issei replied calmly. After all, this was the plan all along and Sona fully expected him to back up Rias. So how exactly are you going to reincarnate me? Issei said with a relaxed smile. Rias was worried about how nonchalant he was acting but decided to worry about it later. I'm going to use these. Rias said, smiling as she grabbed a small pawn piece. Chess pieces? Are you kidding me? Issei replied sarcastically. This is called an evil piece. Once I place it in you, I can make you my servant. Rias said calmly. Is it really that simple? Issei replied calmly. Well, if you're the Red Dragon Emperor, I'm pretty sure I'll need all 8. Rias said, smirking as she grabbed all 8 pawn pieces. With all 8 pieces she walked in front of Issei and focused her energy. Soon the 8 pawns flew into Issei and at last he was her pawn. So that's it, huh? Issei said, smiling almost nonchalantly at the new power flowing through him. Rias was shocked at how calm he was. He just took 8 pawns of power like it was nothing. Normally getting all 8 pawns to focus on him at once would cause major damage to his body. The fact he was still so calm meant he had some serious power. Yes, that's it. Now you're my pawn. Rias replied smoothly, though on the inside she was definitely scared. If that's all, I'll be on my way. Issei said, smiling. Wait a minute, Issei. Don't forget to come back tomorrow for your first day as a devil. Rias yelled out. Got it? Issei yelled back as he left. Rias watched for a moment and waited until Issei was long gone before she turned to her queen. Kiba, Kaneko, why don't you guys head home? I need to talk to Akeno alone. Rias instructed, emphasizing the last part. The pair left, leaving the queen and king alone in the orc. So Rias, what's wrong? Akeno said, smiling. When you fired that lightning attack at him, how much strength did you use? Rias questioned. Oh, I used enough that it would have hurt a bit but not enough to kill him. Akeno said, smiling sadistically. That's good. However, I was surprised at how nonchalant he acted. Plus his dragon's words concerned me. Rias admitted. Yes, I know. I wonder how long it would have taken for him to break, Akeno said as she licked her lips. The fact he could take a lot of pain made things interesting. That's not what I meant, Akeno. Rias replied angrily. She didn't want to continue the conversation so went back to her room to think. What's your deal, Issei Hyoudou? Rias thought to herself. Something about her new pawn bothered her and she didn't like it. Speaking of Issei Hyoudou, he decided to walk home the normal way instead of teleporting home. He figured that it would make things more interesting for him. It seems like Rainer did fail after all. I knew her story was a lie. A voice said above Issei. Well, it seems I got my wish. Perhaps it's time to put my new power to the test. Issei smiled to himself. Looking up, he was facing yet another fallen angel. This one was a man, and he was wearing a long overcoat and a black fedora. "So what's your deal, big guy?" Issei retorted. "My name is DxD, and I'm gonna kill you." The man replied happily. "I don't think so, DxD. In fact, the person who's going to die is you." Issei smiled as he had a savage grin on his face before casting a barrier of his own. "Well, isn't this a surprise? Why are you casting a barrier of all things?" DxD scoffed. Issei smiled savagely as he turned towards the new fallen angel. "Well, you see, DxD, I've had a power that I couldn't use before because of the strain it would put on my body. Well, that, and I'd alert a certain person that I had it. Now I can both use the power without the strain, and thanks to the barrier, I won't alert that certain somebody." Issei smiled before powering up. "It can't be. Who are you?" DxD screamed in terror at the level of power the young man was putting out. "It's nice to meet you, DxD. I'm Issei Hyoudou, and I'm this generation's Red Dragon Emperor." Issei smiled before uttering the words that would mark the end of DxD. "Get ready, DxD, you're about to experience a power like nothing you've ever seen before. Balance breaker." Issei yelled out. DxD was finished, and thanks to Issei's barrier, the only person who knew he was gone was him. As the sun rose on Issei's first day as a devil, he found himself starting his day in a very familiar fashion, having hex with Sona Sitri. Although this time it was in his house instead of at the Sitri's human world house. Luckily for Issei, his parents were asleep when he got back. He didn't bother asking why Sona wanted to switch venues, but he wasn't about to complain. "Ah. Issei. I'm coming." Sona cried out in happiness as Issei flooded her womb with sperm. After defeating DxD, he called Sona to tell her the good news about him becoming a devil. Naturally, they celebrated by having hex, and as Issei wished he got to see Sona's devil wings and use them in hex. The fact that it was now 6 AM and he and Sona were still at it, well, that was all anybody needed to know about how he enjoyed his new situation. "Geez, Issei. If you're not careful, we're gonna be discovered," Sona complained as she got dressed. "Oh please, you made sure to cast a barrier around the room so nobody can hear us." "Good thing too, you're quite the screamer," Issei retorted. "That's not what I mean," Sona replied with a blush. "Now that you're a part of her peerage, Rias can track you. Plus she's going to do everything she can to ensure your loyalty, and that includes sneaking into your room." "That's fine with me. I won't do anything, you and I both know that," Issei insisted. Over the years they'd been together, he became very familiar with Sona's A-cup angst. So he promised that he wouldn't do anything to Rias. "Yes, I know, but that's not the problem. She could sneak in on us having hex, and we'd have a real problem. Plus, Rias likes to sleep naked, and I doubt you'll be able to resist her for very long, considering how big her breasts are," Sona said bashfully. Issei groaned a bit because it was Sona's insecurity showing itself again. Issei went over to his secret lover and grabbed her from behind, making sure to grope her breasts. "Well, don't worry about that. Right now the only boobs I care about belong to you," Issei said with a cheeky smile. "Pervert," Sona said bashfully. "Yes, but I'm your pervert," Issei replied with a large smile. "See you in school," Sona said calmly before teleporting away. Issei couldn't see her face, but he knew that Sona was blushing heavily from his last comment. "Well, it's time to get ready myself," Issei replied with a sarcastic grin. Today was gonna be a long day, and he knew it. Scene skip. Just as Issei expected, his first day was a drag. Once he got to homeroom, he was mobbed with questions about him joining the occult research club. He explained that Rias ended up liking his post and accepted him into the group easily. He also assured everyone that he wasn't going to do anything to Rias, something which took a lot of convincing. Needless to say, homeroom was definitely a pain. Of course, the rest of the day went smoothly till it was time to head over to the orc. Now that he was a devil, he wondered what Rias would do about the fallen angel problem, or even if she was aware of it. At any rate, Asia wasn't going to arrive for another week, so he had time to prepare and play. When he arrived in the clubroom, things were pretty much what he expected. Kaneko was sitting down eating sweets, and Kiba was sitting on the couch like a loyal puppy. As for Rias, well, that was the thing that caught him off guard. What in the world is she doing? Issei thought to himself. Rias' Gremory was in the shower, and thanks to the unique position of the shower, he could see the outline of her body. At least until Akeno shut the door blocking them. "Oops. I'm sorry about that, Rias wanted to take a shower, but you arrived sooner than we expected," Akeno said bashfully. "Bullcrap," Drake retorted into Issei's head. "Yep, it's an impressive seduction technique, and if I hadn't been sleeping with Sona for a year, it would have worked pretty damn well," Issei replied to his dragon. Issei just sat down next to Kiba and smiled at his new peerage members. Rias was as transparent as the shower curtain that hid her body. This was certainly going to be amusing. A few minutes later, Rias stepped out dressed in the Kuo Academy uniform. Sorry about that. I wanted to get a shower before we started our activities. Rias said with a whimsical smile. No worries, so now that I'm a devil, what exactly do we do? Issei replied nonchalantly. Rias was certainly disappointed at the lack of a reaction from Issei. From all of her information, Issei was a massive pervert and seeing Rias naked even through the shower should have affected him a little bit. Well, as devils, we primarily do one of 3 tasks. The first is hand out and fulfill contracts, second we fight against any stray devils or devils that don't have a peerage, finally we fight in raiding games. Luckily for us we don't have to worry about the third one and we didn't receive any word about stray devils, so your job is contracts for now. Rias revealed. Issei smirked since Sona explained all of the stuff she just said to him, but he continued the ruse, so how exactly do these contracts work? Issei asked. Well, they start with these. Rias smiled as she took out a piece of brown paper with the Gremory symbol in the middle. Of course Issei knew about it since he got one on her date. My familiar hands out these pieces of paper to people we see in the streets. Then I use those pieces of paper to assign contracts. I see. So what kind of contracts does everybody typically do? Issei asked innocently. What makes you think that I assign specific contracts to people? Rias asked innocently. Well, it's pretty basic. As king, you probably look at the requests that people want and assign somebody who's best suited to those tasks. That ensures that you get a successful contract. Pretty smart for a pervert. Rias replied sarcastically, although it didn't bother Issei. Kiba usually gets old housewives since he's a bit of a gentleman. Akeno gets older businessmen. I guess seeing a beautiful young woman like her helps out. That, and I can give a mean massage, and those guys appreciate stuff like that. Akeno teased. Anyway, Kaneko tends to be a taku, and people who like anime. Missions that require more ferocity tend to go to me. Rias revealed with a smile. Sounds about right. Issei thought to himself. Well, how about I give you your first contract? Rias said, smiling as he handed him an address. I want you to go to this address and then do whatever the client wants. Make sure to get compensation for whatever you ultimately do. Issei looked at the address and had to stop himself from face-palming. It was a very familiar address to him and that meant his buddy was screwing with him. Sounds good to me. If you don't mind, I'm gonna walk over there. Wouldn't it be easier to travel by magic circle? Rias wondered. Well, for you guys, who are more experienced in magic, yes, but for me, it's easier to walk and build up my stamina. I mean, I am just a human, Issei replied with a smooth lie. Sounds good to me, just be careful out there, Issei. Rias warned. No problem. Issei replied calmly as he walked out. Once he was clear, Rias looked towards her fellow queen nervously. Something about that whole conversation bothered her. Akeno, something's weird about Issei. He seems to have the perfect answers to everything. Plus, he didn't even flinch at the contract paper. I wouldn't complain. He's adapted to being a devil rather well. Yes, that's the problem. He's done that a little too well. Rias thought to herself. The fact that he absorbed all 8 pawn pieces at full power without any issues bothered the princess. Plus he took everything in stride, something that never happened even with Akeno. I guess so. Rias said calmly. Whatever was bothering her would take care of itself later. By the way, President, what are you going to do about the fallen angels in the area? Kiba asked calmly. Rias frowned as she remembered that situation. She was aware of the fallen angels, but the fact that they hadn't done anything yet worried her. Of course she couldn't be proactive without risking a war. We sit back and wait. If they attack us we defend ourselves, but we don't attack them hastily. Rias replied. With her riser situation also on the table, Rias had to be very careful. Scene skip. Issei walked towards the house that marked his first contract. He couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the address. The fact that Azazel had the goal to use one of the contract circles caught him off guard, but it would make his first contract interesting. Knocking on the door, he smirked when Azazel answered the door. Hello there, sir, I'm the devil that you summoned with the contract. Issei said sarcastically. Welcome, devil boy. Why don't you come in? Azazel replied, trying not to laugh. When the two walked in, all formalities were off and the two best friends were back to their usual tricks. I don't need to tell you how utterly insane it was that you picked up a circle. What if her familiar recognized your energy? I doubt Rias would be happy to know that the Governor General of the Fallen Angels was in her town. Issei said angrily. Yet here you are with me as a contract. Look on the bright side, at least you have an excuse to come see me. Azazel said smiling. That's true, and I'm glad for that. However, before we start playing games, I have something to ask you about, Issei said with a rare serious tone. Well, this is a surprise. You never ask me stuff, and if you are, it means something is wrong. Azazel replied. Not wrong, more curious. Issei revealed. Alright then, ask away. Azazel said happily. Does the name Akeno Himejima mean anything to you? Issei said with a serious tone. Azazel's face told him everything he needed to know. I'll take that silence as a yes. Issei groaned. You're right, I do know that name. However, I'm gonna need a drink before explaining why. Azazel said sternly. After Azazel got his drink, he went on to explain Akeno and her connection to the fallen angels. Of course, he had to pause a few times because of how painful it was to recall the situation. I see, that explains why she hides it. Issei replied. Well, I won't say anything to anybody, we all have our secrets. Thanks, honestly I'm just glad she's okay. Azazel said with regret all over his voice. Well, let's play some games for a bit. I take it there's no new news on the fallen angel situation at the church. Azazel said happily. Well, I kinda killed a male fallen angel last night. Issei replied with a calm smile considering who he was talking to. Geez, you're gonna make things troublesome for your new master. Azazel replied almost in disbelief. Well, she deserves it. She did let Rainer try to kill me in order to force me to be her servant. Issei pouted. Well, enough unpleasant stuff, why don't we just play some games and call it a day? Azazel said smiling. Works for me, Issei replied with a smile. The pair played games for an hour or two and he returned to Rias with a painting to mark the end of his first contract. It wasn't an ideal first day, but it was over nonetheless. Scene skip. What the hell is going on here? Issei thought to himself as he woke up in his room. Why was Issei so confused? Well, it was because his new king was butt naked in his bed. Oi. Rias, wake up. Issei pleaded as he shook his king. Oh, morning Issei. Rias said sleepily. What the hell are you doing in my bed? Issei said in confusion. Well. Why you left so soon after turning in the contract, I never had a chance to talk to you. So I decided to surprise you by visiting you at your house. Of course you were asleep, so I just snuck in and got in your bed. Rias said smiling. That's fine and good, but why are you naked? Issei asked almost in disbelief. Sure, Sona warned him about it, but he thought she was joking. Oh, that's because I sleep naked. Rias said calmly as she got up to show her naked body to Issei. Whatever. Now get out. I'll see you at school. Issei groaned as he got up to take a shower. Some pervert you are. Rias teased. It seemed she finally got a reaction out of Issei and she wanted to press the advantage. Just get out. Issei said angrily. His morning wood was throbbing in pain, but somehow he kept control. Imagine how the school would react if they knew that Issei Hyoudou and Rias Gremory naked in his room and didn't do anything. Rias teased. They wouldn't believe it. They'd believe that I was blackmailing you and that the only reason you're saying that is to prevent me from releasing some photos of you. Issei snickered before leaving. Damn it, I thought I had him that time. Rias pouted. Her attempts to play mind games with Issei had failed yet again, so Rias got dressed and left the house. Rias had no idea that Issei turned on the shower and had to spend 10 minutes masturbating to get Rias' naked body out of his head. Loyalty is hard, partner Drake teased. Tell me about it, Issei groaned as he finally got to his shower. This was going to be far harder than he thought. Scene skip. Issei made his way to the Orc after yet another crazy day of questions. Amusingly enough, Rias didn't reveal their encounter to the school like she threatened. However, he did text Sona on the way to class to say good morning. They had a complicated relationship to say the least. When he finally arrived, Rias was acting like a proper king. Yo Rias. What's the plan for today? Issei said happily. Well, I have another contract for you. Rias said smiling as she handed Issei the address for his latest client. Are you joking? Issei screams internally. Getting a good look at the paper, the client's name was Milky, which was strange enough. The problem was the address. It was enough that even Issei was nervous and it showed on his face. Is everything okay, Issei? Rias asked nervously. This was the first time that Issei actually showed signs of nervousness since she met him. Regaining his composure, Issei calmed himself. Yeah, I'm fine. I'll be on my way. Issei said calmly. Okay then. Rias said in confusion. Something about that address shocked him. As Issei walked to his next contract, he was about as nervous as he had ever been. So Drake, is there any reason that I'm being summoned to Sona's secret house? Issei said in confusion. The only person who knew about the house was Sona and the rest of her family. Not to mention the name Milky was so beautifully fake that this could only spell trouble for him. When he arrived at the house, he knocked on the door wondering just who was waiting for him. Hello there, the devil you called for has arrived. Okay. I'll be there in a second. A female voice said happily. As the person opened the door, Issei was floored. The person in front of him was a young woman who looked like she was no older than 25. She was wearing her black hair in twintails and had a pink magical girl uniform on. Hello there, Mr. Devil. It's nice to meet you. The girl said happily as her violet eyes were filled with intrigue at the man in front of him. Fuck. 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 Issei thought to himself, cursing at his luck. All of his talk with Sona meant that he was familiar with the Sitri family. As a result, he knew he was in front of literally the worst person that he could be alone with. Of course, miss. Issei replied nervously. He was in trouble, and he knew it. Just call me Milky, the mysterious girl said calmly. After he walked in, Issei was led to the kitchen and sat down nervously. Would you like some tea, Mr. Devil? I hope you don't mind, I haven't been shopping recently, so that's all I have. The girl said calmly. Tea is fine. Issei said nervously as he sat down. He was walking on eggshells, and he knew it. You can stop being so nervous, Issei. The young girl said with a wry smile. Issei exhaled completely now that the game was over. Very well, so for what reason have you summoned me, Lady Seraphol Leviathan? Issei said with far more composure than he had before. Then again, who could blame him? The person who summoned him was Seraphol Leviathan, one of the 4 devil kings and the older sister of Sona Sitri. This was somebody that he didn't want to mess with. You finally did it. You called me by my actual name. Seraphol replied happily. Can you blame me for being nervous? Issei said with a smirk. Not at all. I'm guessing Sona has told you all sorts of ghost stories when you guys were done having hex. Seraphol teased. Yes, wait a minute, how do you know we're having hex? Issei replied with concern. Seraphol looked at him with disbelief. Oh come on Issei, give me a little credit. I bet you can think of a few ways I know. Seraphol said smiling. Hold on a second, the tea is ready, Seraphol said smiling as she went to get the brew. Issei used the time that Seraphol was getting the tea to figure out how she knew. Amusingly enough, a few ideas did pop into his head once he thought about it, and he waited until she got back to tell her what he figured out. He took a sip of his tea before answering the Leviathan. Let me guess, you have hidden cameras installed in places you know that Sona goes to frequently in order to watch over your sister. This house also has cameras because Sona wouldn't expect them. That's how you know who I am and about our relationship. Issei replied calmly. Bingo bingo bingo. You're smart, and now I get why Sona likes you so much. Seraphol replied happily. So tell me, Lady Leviathan, there are at least 3 reasons I can think of that explain why you would secretly come here and set up a contract with me. The first is that you want to find out more about the man who charmed your sister. Second, you know about the fallen angel that I put in the basement a few days ago, so you want to find out as much as you can and determine if I made the right move in letting her go. Third, and finally, you're hiding from work and you figured why not come to Kuo and accomplish goals 1 and 2. Issei retorted as he continued to drink his tea. His nerves were gone since he knew that Seraphol wanted to see his real personality. Seraphol got deadly serious for a moment and answered. Well done, you are smart. Fallen angels are near my sister's home, of course I want answers. Plus I have been curious about you as well. Finally, I don't like work, but hey, who can blame me? Seraphol admitted with a scowl. The Leviathan hated paperwork, but she was going to have to return soon enough. Well, I'll answer all the questions that you want to know. First off, the fallen angels are no threat to Sona and Rias, I won't allow it. I can't tell you why they're here, but I can tell you that it doesn't involve the devil community. Secondly, I don't intend to do anything to Rias. She was going to sacrifice my life in the hopes I could defeat Riser for her, a task which I'm rather curious about. As for what happens once I defeat Riser, we'll see about that. Finally, no, I won't tell Sona or Rias about this. Having you on my side is much better than having you against me. Plus both girls would be kinda pissed to know you've made contact with me. Good. You answered all of the questions perfectly. Well, except for one. Seraphol teased. What's that? Issei said curiously. Would you have a problem with a Sitri sister threesome? Seraphol asked curiously. Issei was forced to spit out the last of his tea in disbelief before answering the question. Would I enjoy it personally? Absolutely. Sona is attractive and you're one of the hottest women I've ever seen. However, I also know that Sona would never do it and as a result I have to table that idea. Yeah, I know. She's trying her hardest to make her own name, but with me and Rias as obstacles, she feels inferior. Pretty much, a cup angst is a real bitch. So what do you want to do now? This is technically a contract and I'm pretty sure I'm finished. Issei replied calmly. He was finished with his tea and he guessed their conversation was over. The sooner he left the better. Seraphol chuckled at Issei's professionalism despite his clear hatred for Rias. You have a point, so give me a second and I'll give you something. Seraphol teased as she made her way back to her room. When she returned, Seraphol had a red version of her cosplay outfit and if he didn't know better he'd say it was Rias' size. Give this to Rias and say that it was your reward. I do want you to keep me informed of what's happening, so this works out fine. Issei chuckled a bit at the Leviathan's antics. Seriously? A cosplay outfit? Issei scoffed. It will work, for the sake of the contract, but your actual reward is different. The reward I'm giving you isn't one you can give her. Serafal teased. She heard the rumors about Issei before he was a devil and figured that this would do the job. Really? What's Issei started to reply before Serafal kissed him on the lips, shocking him completely. Although he was caught off guard, her lips were soft, so he simply let it happen. After a few more seconds, Serafal released a kiss and smiled at him. You should consider it an honor to take my lips. That's something that surpasses any silly reward from a contract. Serafal teased. I guess so. It was nice meeting you, Lady Leviathan. Issei said calmly, though his head was on fire. Bye-bye, Red Dragon Emperor. Oh, and next time, call me Leviathan. Serafal said with her bubbly voice. See ya. Issei replied as he left the house. After he went back, he presented Rias with a cosplay outfit, which certainly surprised the young woman. Damn it, these contracts suck. Issei thought to himself as he walked home. Don't complain, partner. Considering that the Leviathan decided to kiss you instead of kill you, I'd say you're doing okay. Drake teased. I guess so. By the way, we definitely aren't telling Sona about tonight. Issei groaned. The contractor the kiss, Drake teased. Both Issei said firmly. Well, I guess now you need to start focusing on that nun. Drake said calmly since the fun part was over. Yeah, I know. She must be something special if the fallen angels are going through this much trouble to get here. Issei replied. Things were certainly getting interesting for Issei, and he didn't like it. Thanks for watching this video. Part 1 is over. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the playlist that I have created and enjoy. Link is in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.